I'm Dean Newlund, and welcome to Leadovation. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. This podcast is dedicated to the art and science of innovative leadership. Through insightful interviews with industry experts, I bring you cutting-edge strategies and experiences of innovative leadership, helping you think differently, act strategically, and achieve remarkable results. Join me as I provide insights and tools that empower you to make smarter decisions, forge meaningful relationships. Welcome to Leadovation. One of the things my wife and I try to do every year is go on one long 3 or 4 week international trip. We've been all over the place, and many of these places are absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Once in a while, you get something that really surprises you. Like when we went to Switzerland, I was just dumbstruck by how beautiful it was and how moved I was by being in this absolute incredible beauty. The podcast that we have here, that now I'm into this 3-4 years, we had 260 some odd interviews. A lot of them are fantastic. And once in a while, I just get very surprised and very taken by the guest or guests in this case. And today's podcast, which right now it's November of 2024, I have 2 guests that really just kind of blew me away. And so I really would love it if you as a listener would pay close attention to the message and the way the message is delivered, because it's very unique. It's unlike any other kind of podcast you have heard because of these 2 people. One is the son. His name is Amit, A-M-I-T, and he was born with a rather advanced stage of autism, which prevents him from being able to speak in an easy way. And then his father, who is a practicing pulmonary physician up in Canada, who's worked with literally thousands of different patients, has really devoted his life to working with his son. And his son is a bit of a savant, even though they never described him this way, because he's had such a tremendous ability to really listen and understand the human psyche, probably because he's been somewhat cut off through his verbal abilities. However, his father has been able to speak for him in a way through the use of directing his hand on a card that has letters where he spells out words. And so this interview that I have with these 2 wonderful people is different, and it takes a little bit of time to get yourself into it. But I would highly suggest that you pay close attention to the relationship these 2 people have and the message they have about awareness and stress and getting to root cause and intuition and the highest and best of the human spirit. I was very moved by it. And so their names again are Amit, A-M-I-T, and Kumar, his father, Ramlall, R-A-M-L-A-L-L. And both of them have developed a company called the Chintan Project. Chintan is Amit's middle name, and they empower businesses and leaders to leverage their unique strengths and turn their challenges into opportunities, and being able to develop some wonderful growth as a result of that. They primarily work with startups and companies that are family owned and are in the initial stage of funding. And they really have developed a wonderful partnership to be able to help cut through all the garbage, all the BS, get to the true source of what these owners of companies are trying to accomplish, and cut all of the BS away to help them create the kind of solutions that they're truly seeking. To me, that is what we are all about. That's what we should be about. So pay a close attention to this wonderful conversation between these 2 people. I think you'll really enjoy it. And so again, welcome to this episode of Leadovation. So Amit and Kumar, I'm really pleased to have you on the show. And without further ado, would you kind of just tell us how the 2 of you work together and what's your story? Because it's unique. It's not your normal run-of-the-mill story. This is not your normal run-of-the-mill podcast. I mean, I think I've done 260 podcast episodes. This is going to be in its own little niche. So, audience members, listen up. Tell us your story.
Thanks for having us on, Dean.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, Dean. So
you're very welcome. Yeah.
I'm Dr. Kumar Ramlall.
And I'm Amit.
Yeah. And so for those of you guys on video, you're going to be exposed to something. And for those of you on audio only, we are going to actually explain how this works. Is that Amit types in a card for communication, which is a leftover of autism, and he's going to explain how that works. Dean, I don't think you've even seen how this works.
I have not seen this yet. This is first.
Hello, everyone. I had autism, which still affects my independent speech. I type on this card. So just so you know, this is a 50-cent piece of laminated plastic with nothing fancy at the back. So, and my dad reads what I am typing.
So for those of you who can't see this, what's going on while I'm watching these two young wonderful men is that Kumar is actually helping Amit type out what he is thinking, because sometimes it is needed in order to communicate. Is that correct?
So actually, I am typing and he is reading what I type.
Understood. Got it. Very good.
So I use this to help me speak, much as some use glasses to help them see.
Understood. Got it. Fantastic. So interesting kind of way of communicating, but it's working. It sounds like it works for you, works for us. Tell us your story. Obviously, you work together in business. Maybe give us some background about how you're able to leverage each other. I mean, obviously, with you have autism, it affects your speech, and then you've got a father who's helping you helping you communicate at certain times. How did you be able to come together and be able to make something of it?
So here's issue with this card. I learned it from the same institute. By the way, when my dad sounds like a robot, that's him reading what I am typing.
Understood.
When he sounds half human, that's him speaking for himself.
You guys got some humor. I love it. Yeah, I love it. And I can almost, I can see you actually mouthing the words, but of course, with the assistance to be able to, bring your thoughts to the rest of us, you obviously need this extra help. So how did you figure out how to do this? And how have you been, tell us also about how you're applying the two of you in business.
Yeah. So I am working hard to increase my independent speech, but it still is not consistent enough for me to use in business.
Understood.
Yeah. So in terms of how we work, here's the short version. Navigating the maze that was autism has helped make me an expert in human awareness and human achievement.
All right, let's stop for a second. That's a very powerful thing you just said, Amit. How is that true? Explain that for us. That sentence about your autism has been, my words, not yours, a sort of a superpower into the human dynamic. Tell us how that is. How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, I was blessed to have been called stupid, so I learned to think for myself. I was blessed to not be able to speak, so others ignored me. And I had an opportunity to observe as part of their world and also as a fly on the wall.
Great. So question on
I
this.
have studied over 14,000 books by the greatest thinkers of all time, trying to figure out this puzzle of how humans tick, how we relate.
All right. So let me ask some follow-ups. This is fascinating. You read 14,000 books?
Yes.
I'm lucky if I can get through 2 in a month.
Oh, I don't think that's anywhere close, Dean.
Yeah, so you've got me on that one.
What I
So
hear, you've got your own books coming out. So
yeah, well, that's true too. But my question is do you account for the ability to read 14,000 books? Is that at all connected to your autism? Meaning, do you have a savant sort of skill in retaining information, or is that just you happen to love to read books? You're a voracious reader.
Well, a little bit of perspective. So Amit learned to read because of an institute in the U.S. called Institute for Achievement of Human Potential. They actually taught my wife and I a technique to teach Amit to read. As soon as he learned to read, he started reading voraciously everything. And then they also taught us this card on which he types. And
Understood.
Through the card, he started writing. And initially it was survival writing, very, very briefly. And then he started writing the equivalent of white papers. We didn't know it at the time, but it was quality enough information that people started wanting access to. Initially it was for free. Then they started buying it. Then they started hiring us to go out and do consultations. And so Chintan Project, our consulting company, was actually founded through Amit's writings initially that people asked for. And that's how a business came out of, at that time, a little autistic kid.
So, Kumar, what's your background? Thank you for the background with Amit and his skills and his abilities. What's your background?
So I am an investor now, and I am also a physician. I am a specialist physician in Canada. I've seen over 70,000 individual patients. And I will tell you something, Dean, each of those 70,000. So each of those 70,000 patients has taught me how we humans operate, and particularly how we humans operate under stress.
All right, so let's just
none of that prepared me for my kid with autism and understanding that that's what I was going to do. Right?
The joys of children and what they bring to us, for sure. So you've got a physician who's seen 70,000 patients. We've got a very intelligent, bright son with autism who has a ability and has learned to be able to voraciously read, to retain this, to observe human behavior in a way that most of us probably don't, because we get caught up in a different way of being. You've actually had the ability to observe and to learn from what you've observed. So now you've got you two coming together. So now what do you do with all this? This is fascinating. I mean, now that you've got these two different components together, what are you seeing people are asking you for? What are you providing them?
So we were rapidly recognized to be experts in how humans deal with stress and how they make choices and how those choices translate or not into action. We started working with business owners of privately held companies, and here's one truth of business. Businesses tend to have their greatest challenges when their owners have their greatest challenges. And owners have their greatest challenges at times of highest stress. Those times, those parts of the life cycle of a business are concentrated at the startup and at the exit. Practically, we had priced ourselves out of the startup market.
So let me clarify something here.
Yeah.
So you made something, a comment here about the greatest challenges of a business is the stress that the owners.
So what the point
We
was?
clarify that.
Yes. So businesses tend to have their greatest difficulties when the owners are challenged with something that they're going through at that time, whether it's decisions in the marketplace or whether decisions in their personal life or whether decisions with partnership troubles. And so what our business was helping the owners particularly solve their people problems, the ones above HR. And practically what that meant was family-owned businesses between spouses. What that meant was succession planning, like which kid gets what when, sibling troubles, partnership troubles. And so we were brought in when they were having difficulties. What Amit was then making the point of is that those people problems with ownership levels of business happen at two big broad strokes of times. One is startup. And what he jokingly truly said, but honestly said, is that we'd priced ourselves out of the startup market, except for VC funded startups, right? But we priced ourselves out of the startup market. So we found ourselves being hired around the times of exit. Because if there are partnership challenges, ownership challenges at the time of exit, it seriously hurts the sale. It's like blood in the water. And the sharks come out. So
this is fascinating.
So we were hired, if you will, to help clean up the internal mess in preparing for a sale. Or sometimes a company was in the midst of a capital raise, right? So they're in the midst of a capital raise. We're not talking, honking big go public capital raise. We're talking, like a few $1 million capital raise. And if there's challenges between the owners, because why do you need capital? You need capital because of some problem going on in business, right? Like you need capital. So usually at those times of stress, the owners start squabbling. And now you're in the midst of a capital raise with two principals in an organization not getting along, which technically, if you're big enough, has to be a disclosed thing in your offering. Well, nobody wants to say in their offering memorandum, well, you know what, the husband and wife are fighting and not sure if their marriage is going to last, and they own this business and now raising capital. Well, that don't look so good. So we would go in and put that stuff out.
This is great. So again, your niche is it sounds like smaller businesses, those that are startups or exiting. It's not the large multinationals.
No. Typically, and then from that, what happened is that we started actually buying companies who found themselves in that circumstance because we understood. They said, you know what, man, we don't want to have to deal with my brother, so I'd sell my piece. You guys go sort out how you buy my brother out. And then now we own the business. Right. So we went from consulting for businesses, solving people problems, to now acquiring businesses ourselves. And that's the bulk of what Amit and I would do right now is that work.
All right. So let me take a quick sidebar. I want to go back and just remind people who are coming into this about how this process is working, because you may hear some banging going on in the background as we're listening to this interview. And that's actually Kumar, who has Amit's hand. Is that correct?
So the way this works is
Who has whose hand here?
I type on this card
So
machine,
that's Amit. Amit is typing.
pulls my hand away from the card because one of the residual effects of autism is something called
Perseveration.
Perseveration.
I would repeat the same letter. So, by my dad pulling my hand away, I move on to the next letter. Like literally, for those on video, like what I'm doing is
Yes.
pulling it back.
And then so what's that fascinating? So again, if you can't see this, everybody, this is an interesting conversation,
Like
obviously.
I had to go to your video, man.
No, it's really, yeah, it's absolutely. I love it. Thank you, man. But what I'm curious about is, I want to go back to the topic, but I'm also curious. I want to finish up my curiosity about this process, and then we'll move on. So Amit, so I see that you are not always looking at the card. Your eyes are off in another direction. Do you just know the card so well as to where it is?
Dean, when last did you look at a keyboard you're typing on?
All right, you answered my question. You know the card that well. Okay.
And I have written thousands of pages of manuscript using this card.
All right. So all right. How does that work?
More than most have typed in their lifetimes.
Totally get that. So do you use a regular keyboard, much like, say, what we would have to be able to type? Or do you need...
Can, but
yes,
the perseveration still affects that. So I am left when I type independently on a keyboard with missing chunks of my logic. My hands don't work as rapidly as the flow of my thoughts. This process is in a way a gating mechanism so that I am forced to slow down my communication.
understood.
And it is ordered. But that will be fixed too, because each day, every single day, I make a video to practice my independent speech.
Is the goal at some point not to need to have your father be with you to help communicate? Is that where you're leading to?
The old man has a life of his own.
So I guess the answer to that question is yes, that is the overall goal. Yeah. All right, so let's go back, gentlemen.
And we are...
Oh, go ahead.
We are getting there.
Got it.
Whatever it takes for as long as it takes. That's what the Celtics said, I think.
I have to say that I'm very moved in another way, just of your relationship that you two have. It's very...
we're probably going to fight on this call. It's all right.
No, but no, it's very sweet. It's very warm. There's a tremendous love between the two of you that I cannot explain unless you see you two together. The father helping the son in this way is so primal. It's primal to my life, wanting to help my son in other ways than what you are doing. But it's a very poignant thing to see you two working together, and I just wanted to call that out.
Thank you. And let us also say this is not some kumbaya family over here. We fight and disagree, and one of the things that we have managed to do is to understand that in our business we are equals, and in life my dad is very much my dad, and that's okay.
Very good. This is wonderful. So let's go back to what we talked about before around the work that you do with these companies, especially at the beginning, more maybe on the end. How are you able to help them resolve these relationships that ultimately affect the success of their business?
So practically, we have been called by a client in Johannesburg the following. He said, you guys are like SEAL Team 6. You come in under the cover of night, do your thing, and go away before anybody knows you were here.
All right, great metaphor. Amit, great metaphor, my friend. I love it. All right, so let me ask you, what does that mean? How do you do that?
What that means is that we have an understanding of what humans need, what they are looking for. And yes, most of us have that understanding too, or can acquire that training. What's different is our certainty that each human wants more, our humility to listen and to hunt meticulously for what it is that they are after. Then to be able to creatively craft solutions that work. And each client teaches us something that we get to use for the next one. It's just like my first 10,000 patients taught me something that I could use for the next 10,000, the next 10,000, and 10,000 after that.
So, gentlemen, I love this. I guess the words that start coming to mind are this deep listening that seems to cut through symptom to get to source of what the real issue is. True empathy, true understanding of what people are seeking, even though they may not be able to articulate it. And then from that deep understanding, your ability to create solutions, which I will say this before you respond. But this podcast, before it was called Lead Ovation, was called The Business of Intuition, based on a TED Talk that I did 4 years ago of a similar title. And intuition, I think, is one of those superpowers that we have. Some of us have accessed it more than others, but it's a common strength that we all have. What I would almost assert is that what you are suggesting is that you have a high degree of intuition, that you're able to pattern recognize and truly understand the source of what people's desires and needs and barriers are. And from that deep understanding, you create solutions. Am I on the right page here?
On the right track. Talking about the old name of your podcast. Intuition is something we have invested considerable resources into studying, and particularly because we define intuition as a form of neurofeedback that lets you know if you are on track with whatever is most important to you. And we are careful to differentiate intuition from impulse and instinct.
Okay, hold the phone. All right, let's talk about that. What does that mean? So you mentioned neurofeedback. Could you I have some ideas about what that means. I want to hear what you feel that means. How do we know what neurofeedback when it's in place, what does that look like, feel like for the person who's receiving it? And then how is that different from impulse? I want to know your definitions of both.
So let's think of it this way. There is a part of us and how we operate that is animal-like. We seek prey and avoid predator. That's good, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So we define impulse as that animal pull towards catching prey. Right?
Yep.
And we define then instinct as that animal pull away from predator.
Which could be part of the brain that is still the oldest. It could be the fight or flight part that
is exactly
we've been around for millennium, as long as humans have been walking the earth. Yes.
That's right. And those impulse and instinct exist not only in humans, and that speaks to the feeling in the gut. Right?
Okay. Well, now you start bringing in the feeling in the gut, Kumar, with a phrase. That phrase makes me think of intuition.
Okay, and so we're gonna help at least try and make that where we are distinguishing this, and so we got the impulse towards prey, towards catching the rabbit, and instinct away from the fox if we are the rabbit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we feel those gut in our gut. That's a seat of the animal brain, if you will, like to go back.
Right.
Yeah. Now, intuition, Dean, is at a whole other level, because intuition is agnostic of pain and pleasure. Intuition is able to equally embrace pain and pleasure in the pursuit of purpose, in the pursuit of mission, in the pursuit of the most important thing, the highest value, what the Greeks call telos.
Telos?
Telos, highest value. The end, telos means the end in mind.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So I love the definition, agnostic of pain and pleasure.
Yeah.
But you're also introduced this idea of purpose.
As an example, my parents embraced pain and pleasure equally, agnostic, in fact, of pain and pleasure, as they searched the world for resources to help me. My dad went woo-woo on the medical world looking for out of the box solutions to help me. He endured enormous ridicule at the hands of his colleagues, at the hands of regulatory bodies, as he went to fight for me. My mom left her career as an organic chemistry
Professor.
yeah, to do my therapy at home, because the IAHP, the institute that taught us the techniques to help Amit, required that one parent stay at home to do the therapy. And at that time for my family, financially, it made sense for my mom to leave her career.
Understood.
That wasn't easy on my family. That wasn't easy on my dad.
Yeah.
That wasn't easy on their relationship. It almost ended our family. And yet they embraced pain and pleasure equally, so that they would pursue what their intuition told them was right for this son over here. So if it was a matter of impulse, there was not a lot of pleasure into frankly embracing the pain of the ridicule that I experienced at the hands of the professional bodies.
But Kumar, what was the ridicule that you experienced?
Oh, trust me, like my kid, we homeschooled Amit, my wife and I, Dean, and we did not. We had tried the traditional therapies; they were not working.
Yeah.
And so to turn my back on what was the well-trodden path was what was expected of me. I mean, at that time, I was the chief examiner in my specialty in Canada.
Right. And what was your subspecialty?
I was a pediatric pulmonologist.
Pulmonologist, okay.
And allergy. So that's my specialty.
For kids.
I was the head of, and that's another story, but I was the head in Canada of the examining board for that. I was the program director for general pediatrics at the time when I was saying, you know what, I'm going to do what I think is the best thing for my kid, even if it upsets the orthodoxy.
Understood.
Yeah.
And then, of course, your wife decided to take a pause on her career in order to be full-time with Amit. All right. Well, it's great. So we got to different levels of this conversation happening at the same time, your personal story. But if I could bring you back to this deep understanding that we started, your listening, your ability to get to source and to find out exactly what root cause is. And I gathered that intuition is part of your skill set. How are you able to use all of these skills in the service of your clients? What does that look like?
So for what we do now, we can help craft solutions in the course of acquiring a company that others have not been able to access, because we help them get more of what they want.
And
it is that ability to be present with what they are experiencing and what they are after that helps us craft those solutions.
So
from Sean Calgi at Unblinded, we learned humans want one or more of three
Three
things: more money,
Hmm.
more time freedom, or more magic. And most want more money in less time with more magic.
So I love that. What do you mean by magic?
The things that inspire us in your life. The things that are done not only for more money, not only to free us of time commitments, but it is the stuff that speaks to the significance, the contribution, if we might use those words.
Very good.
For some, magic is a relationship. For some, magic is funding schools. For some, magic is feeling the ocean breeze in their hair. It's all of those and none of those, because it's what it is for you.
Individually, yes. Yeah. So when you two work together with a client, do the two of you work in the same fashion by which we are now experiencing you on this podcast?
This would be a common way for us to operate. I jokingly say that the people who don't know better request that I work with them. The people who know better get both of us.
It's a very profound thing you just said. So I find that this experience with you is very interesting because of the fact that it's a slower delivery, meaning word by word. I'm finding that my listening is different. And I'm also finding that the words that you do choose feel more poignant than if it was just one person. And I can also sense that there's almost like this anonymity, like
would be very upset if I wasted his time and made his hands hurt with meaningless garble. Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree, Amit. I agree. So it's a really interesting way to have a conversation. I'm struck by so many levels of this. I'm struck by the deep understanding that you two have. I'm also struck by the way in which you work together. I'm struck by the way in which I'm receiving you two and how that is a positive thing for us as an audience member to slow down, to listen, and to consider what you're saying probably at a more deep level because of the way you're delivering it. And it's changing my listening, changing my ability to be present with you because of the way you are presenting yourselves. And I can see that this isn't a shtick. This isn't just a game here.
Operate,
this is how you operate, man. This is how you do it, right? This isn't a gimmick, right?
We have said to people, so oftentimes when we meet a business owner, I might be the first one on the phone because, but if they will not work with Amit, we will just not do business with them. There's tons of other people buying businesses out there, and there's tons of other business consultants. If you wouldn't work with us, that's all right.
Do you work primarily in Alberta, or are you nationwide, worldwide?
Well, yeah, up till a few years ago, we had 0 Canadian clients. So our clients were all over the world.
And so, Kumar, are you still a practicing physician, or is this now your full-time operation?
Only because we have built a system for leveraging the Canadian. I mean, we practice subspecialty medical care in Canada, and we have an asset there. And so I think in time that practice and the systems that we've built will actually be sellable, much as they are in the US. So I still practice some, but I count out the number of days that I work. And my dad has 4,346 people waiting to see him. And they wait when others in our city can see them in a few weeks. So we actually, I'm grateful for that. Like, I'm grateful that people trust us. I don't want to throw that practice away. So, but my manager has given so many days per year that I will practice. That's it.
Understood. And then your wife, what does she do? Is she still?
Yeah, my wife is actually, she spent, Amit is 22. She left her organic chem career at when he was 3.5, and will never go back. And so she is building out a business for caregivers and for seniors, because her mom has dementia, and so that she's now called.
She's working on that.
Yeah, at one point she was going to build out a business to teach parents, much as we have learned through Amit, and now she's building out a business to help seniors. So that's what she's doing. Yeah,
that's fantastic. So, Amit and Kumar, what's next for you, and also how can people follow what you're all about, learn more about you?
So, what's next is leveraging all of the gifts that we have personally and professionally, and using this to scale our impact now, not only through our clients, but in the businesses we control. Because I learned from Mr. Bill Bartman that business is one of the great levers that moves the world.
Amen. I believe that too. I've always had this idea. I probably read it 10 years ago, that business has the opportunity and maybe the duty to change the world, because we spend as much time as we do in our companies. It probably has as much or maybe even more influence than education, than politics, and maybe even religion. And so, wonderful idea.
And there is a business of education, a business of politics, and
yes,
hate to say it, or perhaps just authentically saying it, a business of religion too.
Well, I just got back from Rome, and I would have to agree with you on that. Gentlemen, I've been very blessed to have you on this show. I know you need to leave here because of another commitment, and as do I. But again, share your website, share any sort of books you're about. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think the most effective way to connect with us is through the website. So it is Chintan Project, CHINTAN project.com. Both Amit and I are on LinkedIn, and that's probably the best place to find us. And apparently, we have Facebook accounts.
Apparently, it doesn't sound Amit that you actually visit it very often, but based on how you said that, what does Chintan mean? CHINTAN. What's a reference to that?
So Amit's full name is Amit Chintan Ramlall. Amit means infinite, and it was a name that his mom and I had wanted if it was a boy. We didn't know if it was a boy or girl before he was born. And Chintan is a name that was found because in our culture, we would name one of your names is based on the exact time of your birth.
Oh.
And it was supposed to start with CH. So we searched for a name when Amit was going for surgery at 4 days old, when we did not know if he would survive.
And so, you mentioned your heritage.
I'll get back to that. So before he went for surgery, we want him to have been named. So he didn't die
without a name.
So Chintan means thinking. So his name, it turns out, means infinite thinking.
Infinite thinking.
At the time when that happened, we did not know that Amit would be gifted as he is with the mind that he does, and the willingness to learn, and the calling to service through his ability to think and solve problems.
And your heritage is from where?
Our family, both my wife and I are from Guyana in South America, and background-wise are Hindu and so those names are both Sanskrit.
Yeah.
I don't know Sanskrit, all right? Like that's what somebody would probably tell me that those names mean something else, and then I'd have to change the story.
Well,
now that's what
it's obviously wrong. My first thought was, you may have come from where your parents came from India. That was my first thought.
They came as our great grandparents and foreparents came from India as laborers in the West Indies. So they came there, and over the course of generations, the language was lost, but a few traditions still held, like finding the name, right? So that's where Chintan is from.
Well, Amit, Kumar, thank you for your energy, for your inspiration, for the example of endless learning and growing and being purpose-centered. I am moved and blessed by having met you today. So thank you.
This has been a privilege for us. Thank you very much, Dean.
Wonderful. Have a great rest of your day.
See you.
Thank you for listening to Leadervation with Dean Newlund. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com, or check the show notes. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. Transform your leadership success with Leadervation.